Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. After the Bric summit where Prime Minister Modi described Pakistan as the mothership of terror, how does the Congress party view the government's handling of the post-Uri situation? That's the whole gamut of developments that I shall discuss this evening with former HRD and Law Minister and one of the most senior MPs in the Congress party, Kapil Sibal. Kapil Sibal, on Sunday, in response to Prime Minister Modi's description of Pakistan as the mothership of terror, you tweeted, "The BJP is the mothership of communal facade, love jihad, beef politics and conversions." Wasn't that a cheap political swipe at the cost of the Prime Minister?
Not at all. Look what's happened, Karan, since he announced his candidature as Prime Minister. There have been close to 12,000 local riots in the country. 12,000. And between 2015 and 16 there's an increase of 17% already. Every year there's an increase, because every time they go to an election, whether it's Bihar or it's Assam and now in Uttar Pradesh, they sort of breed this atmosphere of insecurity.
The background you're sketching may be correct, but is it fair and proper at this point of time to link it to the point the Prime Minister is making about Pakistan?
No, no, we agree
undermining his case on Pakistan?
We agree. I entirely agree that Pakistan is the mothership of terror.
But then why mock the Prime Minister?
I'm not mocking. I'm mocking. He must look inwards. Whereas Pakistan is the mothership of terror, you must look inwards and ensure that there is peace and security in this country so that the democratic process can go on and the real issues in the country must be addressed. Many
people would agree with you that the Prime Minister should look inwards, but is it right to raise that in association with the point he's making about Pakistan?
I agree.
But is this the right moment to indicate your difference rather than agree?
On the one hand, Pakistan is the mothership of terror. On the other hand, look at the kind of speeches that are being made across the country by their ministers.
What about that phrase, mothership of terror? Many people feel it's a catchy, it's a striking description. In fact, it's been echoed and it's caught the fancy of the press both at home and abroad. Would you at least give Mr. Modi credit for a striking phrase?
Oh, I agree. Therefore, I agree with that sentence. And I agree with the association of Pakistan as the mothership of terror. I entirely agree with him and I support
him for that catchy phrase?
I applaud him for that catchy phrase because I agree with him.
And Pakistan is the...
I didn't mock him. No, I'm trying to sort of make him realize the reality of what he's doing in India and his party is doing in India. Just the other day, Mahesh Sharma, just yesterday I think, or today Mahesh Sharma has gone to Ayodhya, 15 kilometers away from Ayodhya, and wants to build a Ramayan museum.
But would you link that to Pakistan?
No, I'm not linking it. I'm just saying that you also must realize that you are creating a situation in this country to polarize the polity only to win an election.
Can I put it like this? You're trying to do two pretty contradictory things at the same time. On the one hand, you say, at least you said it now for the first time, that you applaud that catchy phrase.
Absolutely.
Although earlier you didn't say it, but you're saying it now. And at the same time, you're using that phrase to point out Mr. Modi's contrary behavior in other areas.
Absolutely.
The two are so different and polar opposite. Should you do them
That's why
together?
that has caught the attention of the people. Look at the number of retweets. They're close to about 450 on the tweet that I have made.
So you have no regrets about this?
Absolutely not. Because I think these are issues that we must bring to the fore.
Let's come to the Bric summit. The Prime Minister made a determined attempt with 3 separate speeches to forcefully raise the fact that Pakistan had become the epicenter of terror. He used strong, almost emotional language. Do you give him credit for the forceful way in which he's brought home to the BRICS leadership that Pakistan is a terror-supporting state?
Well, what's the outcome, Karan? What's the outcome? I mean, he made at the end of the BRICS meeting, he made a statement that we've all agreed that those who nurture, those who sponsor, those who support, those who shelter terrorism are as much to be blamed as terrorists themselves. And that's not reflected in the Goa Declaration at all. So what do you make of that? Here is a Prime Minister making a statement of an agreement between the BRICS countries which doesn't find mention in the Goa Declaration at all.
So you're saying two important things there. One, his rhetoric wasn't matched by the actual results. And secondly, when he claims we've agreed in this sense to treat states that nurture and sponsor terrorists as bad as terrorists themselves, actually no one had agreed, and therefore he was misleading people.
Oh, absolutely.
You're actually saying that?
I'm saying that he should, a Prime Minister, when he makes a statement like that, should be reflected in the should have been reflected in the Goa Declaration, or he should have been careful not to make that statement. But that's not the only thing. In a restricted meeting, the Prime Minister further said that Pakistan is the mothership of terrorism and that they nurture a particular mindset. they nurture a particular mindset. And then he went on to say that the BRICS countries, it's time for them to act together and to speak in one voice. That's also not reflected in the Goa Declaration. And I'm really surprised why the Prime Minister was making these statements. This is not a theatrical performance of the Prime Minister. These are very serious issues.
So this is an instance where the Prime Minister was exhorting BRICS to act together and speak in one voice, but they didn't listen to him.
Not only did they listen, no mention of Uri, no mention of Pathankot, no mention of Gurdaspur, no mention of cross-border terrorism, no mention of Pakistan, and what is mentioned is Islamic State and the alter ego of Al-Qaeda.
So what you're saying is
Al-Nusra.
So if I understand
Jabhat al-Nusra.
If I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that the two terrorist organizations that matter the most to India, Jaish and LET, weren't mentioned.
Exactly.
But those that don't matter to India as much,
exactly.
ISIL and the alter ego of Al-Qaeda, as you put it,
exactly.
were mentioned.
Were mentioned, and that is because they affect both Russia and China.
So
in other words, the Chinese agenda and the Russian agenda was actually embraced by BRICS, and what the Prime Minister has been talking about was not even mentioned. What kind of diplomacy is that?
You're clearly pointing out very important discrepancies or discordances between the Prime Minister's rhetoric and the actual achievements of the Goa Declaration, or between the Prime Minister's exhortation and, as you call, the fact that BRICS didn't listen and pay attention. What then, in that light, did you make of the fact that 24 hours after the BRICS summit ended, the Chinese Foreign Affairs spokesman, the Foreign Ministry spokesman, issued a statement in Beijing where he...
That's even more shocking, because on the 17th, the Foreign Ministry issues a statement that there should be no linkage of terrorism with either any state or any religion. That's a direct hit at Prime Minister Modi's statement that Pakistan is the mothership of terrorism.
You're saying the Chinese spokesman snubbed Mr. Modi?
Without any doubt. And after tom-tomming about what a great relationship they have with China.
I've heard what you said. There are many listening to you will say that Kapil Sibal is scoring small political points at Mr. Modi's cost.
No.
Are you being a little small-minded in pointing out these issues?
No, I'm not being small-minded at all. I think this is not the way to conduct diplomacy. I mean, Prime Minister, when he makes a statement, actually catches the attention of the people of India, and that statement must be made with careful thought. And diplomacy should not be a bluster for television audiences.
And you're saying it was?
It was a bluster for because no Prime Minister would make a statement like that unless there was an agreement amongst the BRICS countries.
Let me try and understand what you're saying. Are you suggesting that given the time, effort and passion the Prime Minister devoted to the two twin subjects of Pakistan and terror, the end results in terms of the Goa Declaration simply didn't match up?
Very disappointing. Not just disappointing, it puts the Prime Minister in very bad light. You've never heard previous Prime Ministers making statements like that and ultimately not found in the declarations made later.
Explain why it puts him in a bad light.
Because it reflects that he has said something which reflects an agreement, and it's not reflected in the statement itself. What does it? How will the Prime Minister answer these questions in Parliament?
I get the feeling from what you're saying, and I'm going to ask you whether I'm correct or wrong, and the audience probably will get the same feeling too, that you're suggesting that at BRICS, with his single-minded focus on terror in Pakistan, the Prime Minister has converted India's foreign policy into a single-minded concern with just two issues, forgetting all the other issues that are important. Are you going that far?
Oh,
that's the impression you're giving.
The other issues are exceptionally important, and he actually has gained success in some of these issues. For example, his agreements with Russia, in which there's an air defense system, the Triumph, that we're going to buy at 32,000 crores.
But that was in the bilateral summit, not the BRICS.
Those are achievements on the sides of BRICS summit.
And you're saying they're overshadowed by the...
They're overshadowed by his own rhetoric. And that's what's sad.
So what you're saying is that the strategy the Prime Minister adopted at BRICS was the wrong strategy?
Absolutely. And these statements should only be made after you have a consensus amongst the BRICS countries. Then only the Prime Minister should have spoken.
He jumped the gun, you're saying?
He jumped the gun, absolutely.
And you're also saying that the outcome is not as praiseworthy as the BJP party and its spokespersons have claimed.
I think that's reflected in all the editorials and all the comments made by various
newspapers. Let me play devil's advocate to the position you put across.
Don't play devil's advocate.
Let me quote to you two sentences from the Goa Declaration. First, the declaration says that the BRICS countries recognize the responsibility of all states to prevent terrorist action from their territories. In these circumstances, that is directly a hit at Pakistan, and surely that's one moment when Mr. Modi has scored points.
The important thing is that in this declaration, there's a condemnation of attack against many BRICS countries, including India. But that attack against BRICS countries, including India, doesn't mention Pakistan at all. And that's very sad.
Actually, it doesn't mention Uri either.
Yes.
Nor does it mention it in terms of terrorism.
Exactly.
So you're saying that's a lapse?
That's a lapse.
But how do you know it's not simply the way the declaration is worded?
No. Surely the Indian negotiators must have tried to put that in the declaration, and others would not have agreed. So it's a triumph, in fact, of others not allowing India to put this on the table in the BRICS dialogue.
Let me read you a second critical sentence of the Goa Declaration. It says, "We, that is the BRICS countries, strongly condemn terrorism in all its forms and manifestation and stress that there can be no justification whatsoever for any acts of terrorism, whether based upon ideological, religious, political, racial, ethnic or any other reason." Now, it may not name Pakistan, but that sentence covers all the possible explanations and justifications for the Pak-based terror India faces. And again, this is a plus point for India.
That's what the global community has always said. The Russians have always said this, the Chinese have said it, because themselves are the victims of terrorism. And remember...
So you don't think this is an achievement for India?
Not at all. In fact, remember another thing. The Chinese on the 17th also said that Pakistan must be applauded for the sacrifices it has made, because itself is a victim of terrorism.
You're talking about the Chinese Foreign Ministry.
And they went on to say that the international community must recognize that. And they also went on to say that we must go to the root causes of terrorism, which is actually towing the Pakistan line.
I have to put this to you, Mr. Sibal. The impression you're giving me is that you believe India didn't gain anything of substance on the issue of terror and Pakistan from BRICS.
Absolutely. That is the point that I'm
Is that your party's position?
That is exactly what we feel. I think the Congress party has said so.
That the government and India did not achieve anything of substance at all?
Absolutely. What of substance did we achieve on the kind of agenda that the Prime Minister put forward, which was Pakistan is a terrorist state, there is cross-border terrorism, we are victims of terrorism, we all must speak in one voice, we must act together. None of that happened.
So you're saying from India's standpoint, the BRICS outcome was not just disappointing, you're making it sound like a bit of a failure.
The point is, we should have done better.
All right. Let's leave the BRIC summit aside. Let's come now to the surgical strikes undertaken by the Indian Army on the 29th of September. What do you believe they achieved?
I think that once the government says there have been surgical strikes and the army says there have been surgical strikes, I don't think nobody in this country should say that there were no surgical strikes.
Although some of your colleagues came close to suggesting that.
No, that's because they politicize these issues. As you know, that Operation Ginger happened in 2011.
But your position is no one in India should question the strikes and the fact that they happen.
The fact that the government has said that there are strikes, that by itself should not be questioned. But if you start politicizing that issue, like the defense minister...
I'll come to the defense minister momentarily time. And I want very much to talk about what you call politicization. I'm not avoiding it.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you one more question about the strikes. Would you accept that these strikes have sent across a very strong and powerful message to Pakistan? First, that you face a new resolute India. And secondly, whenever there is any terror attack on India emanating from Pakistani soil, we will hit back, and we will hit back hard.
But we've done so in the past. This is not a new resolute India. This is a resolute army. Of which we are proud.
So then is there a new strong message to Pakistan?
No, there was always a strong message. We hit them back in 2011. We hit them back earlier as well. So this is we crossed the line of control area as well.
So this is not a new message. This is the repetition of an old message.
Except that the Prime Minister, as usual, is trying to gain political mileage out of it.
All right. Let's come to the comments made by the Defense Minister in particular, because he's made a series of comments and I want to take you through 2 or 3 of them. First of all, he said, and I'm quoting him, the major share of the credit goes to the Prime Minister.
Yes, I don't understand how that statement can be accurate, because all strikes in the past, all such ventures in the past must have had the approval of the Prime Minister.
Well, he's saying 2 things over here. First of all, that it took a lot of courage and conviction to authorize these strikes, and therefore that courage and conviction constitutes a major share of the credit. And secondly, he's saying this is the first time a Prime Minister has actually deliberately made the strikes public. If they happened in the past, they were never made public.
Well, I think that maybe it's good foreign policy not to make them public, because this itself has its own consequences.
But the key question is a different one. Do you believe the major credit goes to the Prime Minister?
No, the major credit goes to the army, and to the extent that the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of this country, he also must share in the credit, like in all such incidents in the past. Yes, the army gets the credit, and whoever is in power shares that credit.
Yesterday, the Defence Minister went, some would say, one step further, and he linked the strikes to his and the Prime Minister's connections with the RSS and what he called the RSS's teachings.
Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
Why is it unfortunate?
Because it's nothing to do with ideology. The army, when it strikes back, has nothing to do with the RSS.
But the point, I suppose, the Defence Minister is making is this, that the courage and conviction that led the Prime Minister to authorize the strikes and then to claim authorship of them comes from the RSS's teachings and his RSS
So the previous
training.
Prime Minister could say that comes from secularism. Does it make sense?
The previous Prime Minister did not author the strikes and claim authorship of them.
Who says that? No, don't say he didn't author the strikes. You don't know that.
He didn't claim the authorship.
That's different, because that's his policy. That was our government's policy. But the fact that it has nothing to do with RSS or non-RSS, it's something to do with what is required at that moment and something that is to be done by the army.
When you question by using the word author the strikes, are you saying that strikes of this nature did happen under Dr. Manmohan Singh?
Yes, of course.
Because this is contradicted specifically by the Defence Minister. He says that the first surgical strikes ever undertaken by the Indian Army... Let me finish and then you can. He says the first surgical strikes ever undertaken by the Indian Army were on the 29th of September. Earlier operations under Congress-ruled governments were at best covert operations.
The army has said otherwise. You know that. General Bikram Singh has said the contrary. So I don't want to enter into this debate,
but
because the Defence Minister has made many such statements.
On General Bikram Singh, there is a very important correction I'd like to make, because it was on my show that he said there had been earlier surgical strikes, but he added that the size and scale of these on the 29th of September were much bigger than the earlier ones.
Maybe so, but they said earlier they would never cross the line of control. What happened in 71, what happened in 65, what happened in 1999.
I want to come to that. Last week, The Hindu revealed details of what's called Operation Ginger, which was conducted in August 2011 when your government was in power. At the time, Special Forces of the Indian Army spent 48 hours on Pakistani territory.
That's right.
8 soldiers were killed, a further 2 or 3 were seriously injured, and the soldiers returned, Indian soldiers returned, with 3 severed heads of Pakistani soldiers as trophies.
That's right.
Now, you were a cabinet minister at the time. Were you aware of this operation?
No, I was not.
At all?
No, I was not a member of the CCS.
Was this operation discussed with any ministers at all?
No, never. It is never discussed in cabinet like that. Because this is a decision that is taken by the army. The CCS is in, looks at it. The approvals are given, and then it goes ahead.
Was this...
And nobody in the past has ever taken political advantage of what our army has done, and who've given human service to this country.
Was this operation authorized by Dr. Manmohan Singh?
Had to be. Had to be. This is all discussed by the CCS. Has to be discussed by the CCS. I'm not a member of the CCS, so I don't know factually. But I imagine that all these issues...
I'm reading between the lines of the interpretation and the comments made by the present Defence Minister, Mr. Parrikar. He says that the great difference between the surgical strikes of the 29th and earlier ones was that the earlier ones were done by the army itself without getting authorization from on top. You insist that authorization from on top came in August 2011.
I doubt very much. Let the Defence Minister place all these documents on the table of the House.
But you're sure that Dr. Manmohan Singh would have authorized Operation
logic persuades me to say that.
Why was it not made public when it was so spectacularly successful?
That was our policy. There are many things that we did quietly, and that's why we were so successful on many fronts.
Given the way the relationship with Pakistan developed post-2011, should you have, with hindsight, made Operation Ginger public?
I don't think so. I still don't think so. I think public statements of this nature has consequences. What those consequences are, only time can tell.
So keeping quiet was not a mistake. You insist it was the right policy.
It was the right policy.
Explain to the audience why it was the right policy.
Because I think that strikes of this nature must be done to send a message to the other side without rising passions within your own country. remember, if you make public statements like that, and raise the passion of people, this is known to the other side.
And by going public in this instance, passions have needlessly been raised.
Exactly. And when passions are raised, there are consequences.
Let's now come to a different subject, but it's a very closely connected subject. I accept your right to criticize the defense minister for politicizing the strikes. How do you, as Congress spokesperson, as a former Congress minister, defend Rahul Gandhi's dreadful khoon ki dalali language? I know at your press conference last week, you said it was the thought that matters. But would you accept that the crude and unbecoming language is not fitting of a man who wants to be Prime Minister one day?
See, look, I think the people of this country understand the intent and the thought behind that comment.
They may understand the intent,
and I think they understand,
but if they do, they're being kind to Rahul Gandhi.
No, it's not.
What about the crude roadside? What about the crude roadside gunda language?
The kind of crude language, and I don't want to repeat them, that have been used by very senior ministers of this government.
But this is not
overshadowed by a huge length of any kind of criticism
that argument would only work if you're saying that the precedent is set by the BJP and you follow their example.
I have clarified it already. It's the thought that matters, and that has been conveyed, and the people of this country
You're a very clever lawyer, and when you keep repeating that phrase, it's the thought that matters, what you're also suggesting by implication is excuse the language.
That's your implication, not mine.
Well, it's an interpretation any sane human being would come
I don't think I'm insane.
But you're clearly suggesting when you say the thought matters.
I'm not suggesting. I don't want to enter into that controversy. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying people understand the sentiment behind it,
but
and that's good enough.
One thing, that the sentiment could have been better expressed.
I'm not going to say anything of that sort. I've said what I had to say.
Would you defend this?
I had said what I have to say, Karan.
But would you defend this?
I have said what I had to say. There's nothing more to be said.
Because I get the feeling that you're far too sophisticated to use khoon ki dalali yourself.
No. You may not get whatever feelings you have, you keep to yourself. I have said what I have to say, and I stand by it.
People listening to you will say he's too loyal to say that he criticizes the language.
There's no question of loyalty or disloyalty. I don't want to enter into a quibbling of words or an altercation of a nature that will lead us nowhere.
Let me come to a second issue. On the one hand, you and your colleagues are criticizing the BJP for politicizing the strikes. On the other hand, Randeep Singh Surjewala, your Director of Communications, doesn't lose an opportunity when a BJP minister speaks to hold a press conference of his own, to give the Congress version and demand an apology. That, I have to tell you, is also politicization.
No, not at all. I think it's in response to what these people are doing.
Why not ignore what these people are doing?
We should ask questions.
No, why not ignore what these people are doing?
Ignore?
Because if you consider it politicization, you make it worse by locking swords.
Not at all, because then it will be as a one-way street. They will get a field day and people will just listen to what they are saying instead of getting the other point of view. Democracy is all about the other point of view, as you know.
Let me put to you what many people feel. They say the truth of the matter is that Congress is jealous that both understandably and justifiably Mr. Modi and his government will get credit for the successful handling of the strikes. It's not principle that's motivating you, but jealousy.
Look, anybody who has successfully done an operation of this nature should get the credit. I don't dispute that. But anybody who uses this occasion to win an election, which is an upcoming election, both in Punjab, upcoming elections, particularly in UP, is crass opportunism.
You're saying a very important thing, so I'm going to put it back to you. You're saying anyone who is in government when this sort of operation happens should get the credit.
Yes.
Therefore, you accept Mr. Modi deserves credit.
Of course he does.
But you're also adding something else.
Yes.
That if you politicize it to try and win an election, then you deserve discredit.
Absolutely. It's crass opportunism.
That's a very important point. Don't politicize it. Don't use it to win an election.
Exactly.
But if you don't politicize it,
yes, you must
we readily grant you the credit you deserve.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. I'll say it openly in Parliament.
Except you're the only congressman speaking this language.
Well, that's the right thing to do, I think.
None of your colleagues have said this.
Well, I think they have.
Not, not anywhere near as generously and fully as you have.
Rahul Gandhi said it. We fully
Rahul
support the
Gandhi
Prime Minister.
added this little dig that this is the first time the Prime Minister has behaved like a Prime Minister, which considerably undermines the praise.
So, but he did give him credit at the outset.
In a sort of backhanded way.
Well, I don't think
You're not being backhanded just now.
No, I think he must get the credit.
In his book, in his book, Kargil From Surprise to Victory, General Malik, who was army chief at the time, says that when the BJP government of the day and the BJP government began to politicize the Kargil victory, he had to take up the matter with Mr. Vajpayee, and Mr. Vajpayee put a stop to it. Today, when Congress believes that Amit Shah and Manohar Parrikar are politicizing the surgical strikes, do you think General Sohag should take up the matter with the government?
I don't know. I don't think I should comment on that, but I think that the Prime Minister himself should give a second thought to it and should realize that this serves no purpose ultimately. It divides communities. The real agendas of the country are pushed back. The attention of the country is only on issues that are non-issues in this country. The real problems in this country are not being spoken of by the Prime Minister.
So the Prime Minister himself should ensure no one politicizes
if he is to be respected by the people of this country.
One last issue, because we're running out of time. Certain or several theatre owners have decided that films with Pakistani actors or Pakistani technicians should be banned. And now, most recently, the Bombay Film Festival has decided to drop a classic Pakistani film. How do you view such, I suppose I should use this word carefully, retaliatory measures?
Now, see, it's like this. The other thing that's happened is that now there's also this rhetoric that Chinese goods should not be bought in this country, apart from that.
Add that to the mix. How do you view all of this?
And if that's the case, then Mr. Modi must say two things. Number one, stop giving visas. If they really mean it seriously. Again, they are trying to take political advantage.
And
number two, stop building the statue of Sardar Patel with Chinese.
But come back to my question. My question was, how does your party view attempts to stop showing and banning Pakistani films?
This is all politicizing the entire polity of this country, again to get mileage. Again to get mileage for an election.
But I'm asking, it's not Mr. Modi.
They don't mean it, because they should stop the visas.
It's not Mr. Modi who's doing it, it's film producers threatening it, it's theatre owners suggesting they're going to do it.
Please.
I'm asking a simple question.
They are not.
Is it right or wrong to ban Pakistani?
It is wrong of the political establishment to make this happen within the industry.
You keep making it seem as if the political establishment is doing it. It may not be.
It is.
Well, the theatre owners have announced it themselves.
Yeah, but this is, many of the theatre owners are closely associated with them. This is all politics.
A whole range of Bollywood actors have also spoken on this subject.
Right. Many of them support this government openly. You know that.
So you're saying theatre owners and Bollywood actors are actually being pushed by the Modi government?
Like TV channels.
They're not doing it voluntarily?
Like TV channels.
They are not doing it voluntarily?
Like not airing interviews of senior leaders of the Congress party. What is it? Do you think that this is done by them themselves? They're being pushed. And this atmosphere never happened in this country. So
you're suggesting, and I'm asking you for clarification,
I mean, they've given security to somebody.
I've run out of time.
20 people in security.
I'm running out of time, so I want you to clarify for me. This will have to be the last question. You're clearly suggesting that steps taken by theatre owners not to show films with Pakistani actors or technicians.
It's part of a campaign.
Statements made by Bollywood actors against having Pakistani stars in Indian films. Even steps taken by a particular rival channel of ours not to show a Congress leader's interview are all being done at the behest of the government.
That's my impression.
Impression?
Yes, that's my belief.
Is it a fact?
That's my belief.
What's it based on?
It's based on a lot of things. Like? Why would a channel not air the interview?
Because they chose not to.
I don't think so. I think it's a liberal channel. I think its mindset is not in tune with...
Are you sure you aren't jumping to hasty conclusions and now jumping the gun yourself?
I am not jumping to any hasty conclusions. I know some things myself.
All right, Mr. Sibal, let's leave it there. A pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.